Hi, it's Peter Schiff. It's Tuesday, July 14th, 2009. First of all, I made another appearance on CNBC last night, CNBC Reports at 8 p.m., and I actually favorited a YouTube of that appearance on this website, so you can check it out if you haven't seen it. But, interestingly enough, you would think after years and years of going on CNBC and getting it right, when I actually show up now, you would think there'd be a little bit more reverence, that they would take my opinions a little bit more seriously. Yet, I continue to get attacked on CNBC as if nothing had happened. I mean, basically, the host was grilling me for being a doomsayer, being gloom and doom. Forget about the fact that a lot of what I was saying was right. And, of course, he repeatedly accused me of talking my book and trying to have a particular point of view simply because I'm trying to sell stuff. And, of course, there's all kinds of people coming on CNBC that are bullish that also are trying to sell stuff. They never say that to them. And, instead of criticizing me, the guy who was on their show and was right, why don't they criticize all the people who were wrong? One of the big things that he tries to point out is he keeps asking me, how long have you been bearish? How long have you been bearish? As if my being bearish for a long time somehow discredits what I'm saying. You would think that these guys imagine that the economy got into this big mess overnight. It didn't. These problems were building up over a long period of time. And I've been pointing them out for a long time because I pointed out the problems while they were developing, when maybe there was still time to do something about it, when people could prepare for it. I mean, the fact that I was able to see the problems forming years ago is not a reason to criticize me. It's a reason to listen to me. But again, none of these guys, I don't think, are ever going to give me any credit. We'll just have to see what happens. But I still appreciate their willingness to have me on their air. And when they do invite me, I go on and I say my piece. Unfortunately, they don't invite me on as often as they used to. But you never know. Maybe that will change. Also in the news today, everybody's making a big deal about the Goldman Sachs earnings. They earned a lot of money. How do they earn their money? Well, a lot of their money came from trading, buying and selling of securities. Of course, this is a zero-sum game. If they're making money, other people are losing money. And, of course, one of the reasons their trade is so profitable is because they're leveraged up. But they can borrow money very cheap from the Federal Reserve and make these leveraged profits. So even though they're not getting any TARP money right now, they're still getting a gift from the government. They're getting all this cheap money from Ben Bernanke, and they're using it to reap huge profits, none of which is actually benefiting the economy. Talking about what's going to hurt the economy, also we got an announcement today from the Democrats. I was watching on television, Nancy Pelosi, some other Democrats are launching their new health care plan. And not only is this plan going to drive up health care costs and drive down the quality of health care, which is, of course, the opposite of what they're intending to do, they're going to pay for it with a huge tax increase on the rich. Now, who are the rich? Well, the rich are people, I suppose people like me, and other people who run businesses, who employ people, who work really hard. And what they're going to do is raise the tax on everybody who earns over $1 million a year by 5.4%. Now, that's a lot of money. In addition, when the Bush tax cuts expire, the top rate moves up from 35 to 39. You throw this extra 5.4 in. You throw the extra 1.5% in for Medicare that's already there. And now you're talking about a 46% marginal tax bracket on the entrepreneurs, on the employers, on the people who are working. When you throw the state income tax in, most of us are going to be in a tax bracket of 53 to 55%. And you know what happens when you raise taxes on people like that? Well, they don't work as hard. They don't have the incentives to expand their business. They have a greater incentive to substitute leisure for work. A lot of people, as you tax them more and more, as they get to keep less of what they earn, they decide, I don't need to expand my business anymore. I don't need to hire any more people. I don't need to work so hard. And what ends up happening is by destroying the incentives for hard work, they get less of it. And so what happens is they end up losing tax revenues because the income shrinks because people don't work as hard. And now not only do they get less money from this 5.4% surcharge, but they get less money from the income tax. And again, this is not the end of it. Who knows how many more taxes the government is going to pile on, which I guess is a good segue into the last part of this video, and that has to do with my senatorial campaign. Here is the deal on that. Anyway, I have been researching for some time now the feasibility of running for the Senate. I've had paid political consultants. I've done polling. And what the polling shows to me is that I can beat Don. But it shows it's going to be much more difficult to get the Republican nomination because my name recognition among likely primary voters is not that high. But the good news on the polling is that as we educate the people in the poll with respect to my positions, the more they learn about me as a human being, the more they like me, and the more competitive I become with the current leader in the race, Rob Simmons. So basically, the decisions I've made is that I think I have a realistic chance of winning, and I have made the decision that it's worth it for me to put in the sacrifice both of time and money to try to run for the Senate and to try to win this nomination. I think that it's important for my country and for a number of reasons that I'd be willing to run. But the key is going to be money. And I know a lot of people on the internet, they say they want me to run. I get emails that people want me to run. But the bottom line is, if people want me to run, they're going to have to make donations to the campaign. Because this is going to be an expensive race. I'm looking at least $20 million to win this race. And what I have to know is that the people who watch these videos, the people in my database, the people around the country who say they want me to run will support this campaign with money and with donations. So the decision basically rests with the public. If the public wants me to run and they donate enough to this campaign, both I get a lot of people donating and they donate a lot of money, then I make a commitment to you now that I will run. If, on the other hand, enough money is not raised, if I determine that there's not enough real support for me in this race, then I will simply return the money that I've raised and go about my life as a private citizen. You know, the bottom line is, if I can't convince the people that already believe in me and share my ideals to contribute to this campaign, then how am I going to convince people who don't even know who I am right now to vote for me? And so what I would suggest, if you really want to see me run, and if I run, I will run to win. I will put all of my efforts into this campaign, but I need to show that there's real support for the campaign. So what you can do to make a donation is go to the exploratory website, which is shiftforsenate.com, shiftforsenate.com, and make a contribution. You can make a contribution online with Visa or MasterCard, I think, or through PayPal. You can also send a check in the mail to the address on that site. You can also sign up to get information on my potential run, as well as to volunteer should there be a campaign. We're not actually taking volunteers yet because there is no official campaign, but I want to know how many people would be willing to volunteer should I actually launch a campaign. I would also suggest that you forward this video to as many of the friends that you have and try to encourage more people to contribute to the campaign, to visit this website. Because this is key. If I can raise more money in just a few weeks on the internet than the other 3 or 4 candidates, both Christopher Dodd and the other Republican candidates, that's going to really say something. Not only will it say to me that, hey, there really is support for my run, and I can do this because I've got the support of like-minded people all across the country, but it will say a lot in the media because it'll make this a real campaign. People won't be able to ignore my campaign if I'm out fundraising all of the other candidates. And I think with your help and with the database I have, if everybody wants me to run and makes a contribution, I think we can pull this off. And I know right now times are tough and not everybody has extra money. But I think, you know, some causes are worth fighting for and some causes are worth sacrificing for. So if you have to give up buying something so that you can make a contribution to this campaign, then I think it's worth the effort. And probably nobody will sacrifice in this campaign more than I will. But again, if you're willing to work with me and work for me, then I'm willing to run. Anyway, that's it. Thanks a lot, everybody. Until next time, this is Peter Schiff.